Hey, what's happening? It's Jamie. This is the long version of. I've been doing these shorts because they're 60 seconds. They seem to be pretty good at grabbing somebody with a short attention span, and that may be relevant to some of my children or yours. Today I'm going to quickly just mention the stock stuff I'm doing, but what I want to talk about is making sacrifices to accomplish your goals and what that looks like, at least for me. Let me talk about the stocks first. So the stock stuff I'm doing only because I want to mention it for those that care, that have some interest, but that's not what this is just about. But LABU and LABD, they're just two derivatives of each other that trade off of I think it's XPI. I trade those for fun. A buddy of mine trades them. I don't have time to post, but there's a technical analysis that I do where I could fill out of a channel, and he is a far more experienced trader than me. He does much higher gross and volume than me. But I said, man, it seems like it's in a downtrend, and just fell out of the channel. He's like, you can't look at that. That's not how it works off of XPI. You can't look at that. That's not how it trades. I'm like, okay. Now he has a massive position where I have 1,000 shares of this, so I'm in it for, like, let's say just under $7,000. I mean, he's in it for hundreds. I don't want to say hundreds, but easily close to 100,000, if not around there. And it popped a few times, but it never got over my cost average. So what I decided to do on that, I'm on LABU, and my average cost is $6.88. I think as I'm talking about this, it was at $6.20 something. So I was down $500 or $600. So I don't mind sitting on it. I hope it goes to $8 or close to that. So what I did is I put a strike price of $8 in June. I think it's the 19th of this year, and I sold 10 contracts, and I collected almost $600. It was like $590. So basically, as I do this video, I am collecting what I've lost. So if I hold it for 3 more months, right, April, May, June, then if it only just trades sideways or just kind of bumps around, I will get the $509 I lost. And if it's still bumping around, I probably would just sell it at that loss and figure, hey, I'm washing out with the $590 premium I collected. By some chance, if it drops further, I will sell back or buy back those contracts to collect the premium I lost. And hey, if it does go up to over $8 or $9, hey, I keep my premium. If it expires in the money, then I keep my premium, and I get the spread between $6.88 and $8, even if it goes to $20, which I don't think it will. But that's my game plan there. For Tesla, I'm trading just 100 shares right now. I'm not buying more shares because I really don't know if it's going to drop lower. I follow one of the guys that I check out. His name is Kerry Artek from Wicked Stocks. He's pretty good, man. He's pretty good. And I'm not just trying to endorse him, but his breakdowns I find are some of the best I've seen. And they correlate kind of like my own due diligence. And again, somebody who's much further ahead, but a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I think he's on the money, not in the money or out of the money, but like he's on the money, meaning like he breaks it down where I think he's got it. So it did break a certain level this morning as far as trading goes. So I keep selling those covered calls and buying them back. I don't care if it drops back down to my cost average, which is $1.39 or $139 a share, and I keep collecting premiums all the way down. So I don't think it'll go back that low. I think it'll get maybe back into the 150s ish, 160, 150, but it could go lower, of course. And if it does, it'll still be less than it'll still be higher than what I own it for. And I can keep making money from that apartment, so to speak, renting it out each week or month in the meantime. So I've been doing that and trying to take advantage of the price action as it comes up. So that's really all I'm doing for the most part as far as trading goes versus investing and adding shares of companies that I like. Real estate is what I've been really focused on. And before I get into the sacrifice stuff and this goes together with what I wanted to say about real estate stuff. I've been making offers on properties, getting rejected for one reason or another. The lawyer or said no, or advised the sellers no of a trust, even though the people that were selling it were like, yeah, that sounds good to us. The second one was they just didn't accept my offer. I got outbid, and another one just fell through. I mean, just there were different things, and that's okay, because I think the longer I do this, I'm not an expert real estate guru or I still ask for advice of the properties that we have, of the things that we do. I'm pretty careful, but I feel very good about the properties that we get, especially if you can get them, for the price point, or for the conditions and stipulations that you set for yourself going into it. There's lots of advice out there, a lot of input on that. This latest one, I actually stopped in front of it, to the property, on my way to the town hall for zoning stuff. And I was making some notes, and I had somebody yelling at me from the property. I was like shocked. There was a guy with no shirt on in a wheelchair yelling at me. What are you doing? Can I help you? And I didn't even know anyone was there. It kind of blew me away, and I put my window down. I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I know anybody was here. I just came to make some notes. I'm on the way to town hall. He goes, well, I'm the owner. And in our conversation, he divulged to me some of his personal stuff, right? Like, because I was friendly and polite and respectful. I didn't say, hey, who are you yelling at? I might buy your property. Who do you think you are? Be a little, I didn't say any of that. I was just like, hey, sir, how are you? I'm sorry, I just stopped here. I didn't think anyone was, I explained myself, and I kept a good demeanor. And then he opened up a bit, and he was like telling me about, I'm making a long story short. He told me that he has 3 kids. I want to say he had daughters. And he said he's estranged from all 3. And he went through a horrible divorce, and that he recently lost his leg in a motorcycle accident. He told me all this within a matter of 15 minutes. And I made sure that I did more listening than talking. Honestly, the thing I didn't do right is I should have got out of my car and went and saw him face to face instead of yelling out of the window back and forth. But I couldn't tell, if he wanted that or not. I don't know if he would have shut the door on me. But in hindsight, I would have did that. But as we were talking, he said he owned the property outright, that he did not want to hold a note, because I said, hey, would you consider seller finance if I give you a substantial down payment? And at first he said no, but then he said, well, what's substantial? He told me what he would want. And what he would want is basically 50% down. The benefit would be the rate, but I'd have to come up with about $300,000 to do that. So as I was weighing it out, like if I want to do that or not, I still have to go see if the town would approve certain things that I require, for occupancy and stuff like that. So it made me think about how we sometimes have to do things. Often, I shouldn't say sometimes, most of the time, have to do things that we don't want to do. This morning, I woke up very early, around 3:30 a.m., and I didn't get up. And I'm telling you, I feel really regrettable about it. But I haven't been sleeping that well the past few days. I don't know, because I got a lot going on. But I opted in to sleep a few more hours. But at the same token, my will, it was like, you need to get up and go do this. But I didn't. Because I was like, I was thinking about 10 other things I needed to do, and I'm like, I think I need to rest a little bit and be ready. But I probably should have just got up. So I have to kind of have to move some things around so that I can get into the habit of getting up at 3:30, 4 in the morning on certain days. Because if I want to go to the gym and work out and exercise and do those things that take me about 2 hours, quite honestly, there's no other way. Otherwise, I'm just going to miss. And I'm not going to get the results that I want. And how that is relevant is there's a lot of things that you have to do sometimes, whether it's conversations, driving or flying somewhere, or waiting for somebody, or enduring a conversation that maybe you don't want to, and biting your tongue and holding back and having a poker face when really you have other things you want to say. There's people that I know that are great, fantastic human beings, but as far as business goes, I'm very hesitant, and I advise my wife about, hey, we got to be careful, because this person or these folks could potentially cause a bigger problem because they have some self-control issues. They have some, they're easily unstable. They can have outbursts. And I don't mean to sound bad. It's just that if you're thinking about moving your purpose forward, whatever that might look like for you, you have to consider these things. If you want to bring me somewhere, like with you, and you said, hey, I'm bringing my dad, or I'm bringing my best pal, or I'm bringing so-and-so, and I say things that I shouldn't say, I do things that I shouldn't do, and I embarrass you, or I potentially blow a deal up for you that is beneficial for you and your business or your family because of my behavior, right? So you have to make a choice. So all these things that I weigh out when I talk to people and have to do things, I like to relate it to like a cold shower or working out, not because you have to be a fitness person or you might not take cold showers, right? I've only been doing the past, I guess, month or so now, and I haven't gotten up to the cold plunge, but I can tell you that cold shower is something I do not want to do. I did it this morning. I was able to do that. I didn't want to do it. I was like, I don't want to do it this morning. But I forced myself to do it because I'm like, I know I should do it. It'll help me wake up. I'll feel better afterwards. I'll have more energy, and it's better for my health to do it for 2 minutes. Come on, let's go. And I did it. And then afterwards, I think, man, I'm glad I did that. And I'm like, I could have did this a few hours ago, and maybe I would have got more accomplished. So there's a lot of times we have to do things and make sacrifices, right? Maybe you think of that movie, I think I might have mentioned it. It's called The Pursuit of Happiness, where Will Smith plays a character that has to be an intern for a year with no pay. And there's one selected to get this job, but the job was like a really high-paying job and basically would change your life if you got it. Well, he made the decision that he could do it, and he did it, and he got through it, and he got the job, which changed his life. But for that year that he had to endure going to this job, learning this trade, dealing with a jerk boss, doing tasks he didn't want to do, finding a way to survive. He was basically homeless, living at homeless shelters with a little boy on top of that, being a single dad. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. But those are the type of stories, and there's lots of stories like that. Maybe you have your own story, or you're going to have your own story, where you either have done things or endured things, even far beyond that. But for me, I look at that and go, wow, man, that's impressive. And then the other side of that is success, right? So if it's diet and exercise, you're like, man, if I could just diet and exercise a little bit every week, every month, you're going to see results, right? If you force yourself to get up a little earlier every morning and get a head start on your day and do certain things, you're going to be much more accomplished, right, in your day by doing that. And maybe some other things will come up. I find that every day that I have to do something, whether it's driving somewhere I don't want to drive, going somewhere, or talking to somebody or listening to somebody, whatever the case is, there's people in my circle that won't. They're like, I ain't doing that. All set, thanks. And I don't argue with them. I'm like, okay. And maybe that's why we balance each other out in certain regards. So I'll tell you, my wife is like that. My wife is a no-nonsense sweetheart, generous, but man, if she gets the read that it ain't good or she don't like it, she's out. She'll bail. She's like, I'm all set. And sometimes we'll have to have a debate, and I'm just giving you an example, where I'll say, sweetheart, I think, and I have to be tactful, I got to negotiate with my wife and say, I really think if we do this, this will come out. And sometimes I'll convince her if I do it the timing right, and she'll say, all right, well, if you want to do it, that's fine. You deal with that, whatever that might be. I can't. I'm not gonna. And I accept that, right? And then there's times where I will unleash her, right, to do stuff that I'm not able to get further along or whatever. And we make a good team. And that happens sometimes, where maybe you can accomplish it or not. Now, back to this property thing where I'm talking about, because it relates to my own life, is the property I want to buy. If I had to come up with basically $300,000, that restricts me to some of the renovations and stuff that I want to do to the property. And I have to think about income versus debt to service the debt that I would take, because I'm not paying cash for the property. And the person was willing when I thought about it, I'm like, well, if you'd accept 300,000, I can either outbid. I can even say, well, what if I gave you more? I can tell you, you can say stuff like, well, I know you want this much, but what if I gave you that much, right? Even though I'm going to give you less, but I'm going to overpay you. And I'm going to overpay you at a higher number if you can just take this for a little bit longer. Because I look at the debt as far as interest. If I say, well, I'm going to have to pay 8 or 9% for a commercial loan, and for what I'll pay in interest over 5 years, it's going to be that much anyway. So if in that person's perception, if I say, look, I'll overpay you by 25, 50 grand, and the only thing I ask for you is that you do a balloon payment, I'm giving you an example, for 3 or 5 years on a 30-year amortization, and I'll give you this much up front, and I'll overpay by 25, 50 grand. What do you think of that? All they can say is no. They're like, oh. And they might rethink it. Or they may think about it in a couple days or a couple weeks, or in some cases, a couple months later, circle back and go, you know what? I'm not getting the offers I want, even if they don't tell you that. I reconsidered. Yeah, I would work that out. So that relationship that I had with the guy yelling back and forth, even though it was unexpected and I wasn't exactly prepared, if I go back and see him and hand him a letter, because there was a letter I have to, oh, I hope I don't lose it here. There's a letter here somewhere that I have to fill out, some paperwork where they said you have to figure out if the person would sell you their business as well as the property if you want to do this or that. So I'm like, okay. So there's things that I could say, an excuse to have a conversation, even though ultimately I got to deal with his lawyer, his realtor. But nothing will happen unless you talk to them, right? There's nothing will happen unless you have the endurance or the stamina to say, do you really want to do this thing? Whether it's lose weight, get your degree, or learn a trade, buy a property, hold a share, stock, and you believe it's going to go up. Whatever that case is, there may be some discomfort. There may be some things that aren't pleasant along the way, but you gotta. I find that the biggest rewards, just in general, are through sacrifice. Through maybe doing some things. There's not a lot of pro athletes that I know. I mean, not saying me personally, but when I watch that kind of stuff, that are exceptional athletes that do nothing. Usually they train like very hard, right? Whether it be running or physical, weights, and do the rope thing, all these crazy things to push themselves physically beyond what the normal person does, and they become much faster and stronger and flexible and able to excel at their sport, whatever that sport might be. So, I mean, there's a trade-off, and that usually isn't pleasant, right? Usually it's like they have to really push themselves. It's painful. Sometimes they're throwing up on the field, right? Because it's just they're pushing themselves so hard. But those athletes are conditioned, right? Same stuff. All right, I've talked long enough, rambled on. I hope that's helpful for today, and I'll see you guys next video.